let's move to Landlord, shall we? I've been wanting to cover this story. I just think, I mean, again, classic, just nobody wants to touch it because of spooky labels around anti-Semitism, etc. Let's just say from the top, this is not in any way anti-Semitic. What we're trying to do is just cover the story of housing, which the Nation highlighted in a way that I have seen very rarely reported on from the New York Times or from anybody else. So they're the people who did the work, and so they're going to get the credit for it. And of course, the only reason that it's not being able to be published anywhere else is because people are afraid of being criticized. So let's put this up here on the screen. What the Nation did is highlighted, quote, the Eviction Kings, one of Israel's biggest companies, how it's taking over huge swaths of U.S. real estate and how tenants are paying the price. So they specifically highlight these stories about how a company, for example, they highlight this one person who went down and during an eviction hearing, and they say, how did you get to court? Quote, he could have told her about the company that bought Conrad at Concord Mills in Charlotte, North Carolina in March of 2022, the one that they had installed a new slew of gadgets that he said he didn't need before raising rent by nearly $400 a month. He could have told her about eviction notices that the company kept filing against him, the ones that came, he says, with an onslaught of fees that virtually guaranteed he'd never be able to fully back into his feet. He could have told her about the accident that ended up tearing up his leg 2 weeks prior, causing him to need help just to get from his parked truck into the courtroom. Talked about going through it because he had nowhere else to go. In the eyes of the court, it didn't matter. He owed money that he didn't have, so he was thrown out in May of 2024 and spent the following months homeless, showering at rest stops, sleeping in his truck. And what he specifically talks about is this company, referred to as American Landmark, a major corporate landlord with some 34,000 units concentrated in 111 mega complexes like Conrad across 8 southern states, North Carolina, Florida, and Texas, nearly 2/3 of properties purchased after the COVID pandemic began. And the company with private equity structure that allows investors from all over the world to bet on the growth of a real estate portfolio. It is now America's 34th largest landlord. They say, based on a review by the Nation and type investigations of thousands of records from dozens of properties, as well as an interview with its CEO, it's clear that the company model inevitably leads to frequent displacements of tenants. And specifically, what they also do is they look at some 43 different tenants who faced eviction notices from across the American South and the Sun Belt. They report a wide array of issues that they say led to their case. And specifically, to get to the Israel connection, what they say is that because American Landmark is owned entirely almost by Elko, one of Israel's largest corporations. For years, Elko, via its electric super brand, has done extensive business, quote, in Israeli settlements in West Bank and East Jerusalem, and they drive many thousands of Palestinians, obviously, from there. Elko has maintained deep ties to the Israeli military and, of course, has been long part of, like, the Israeli establishment. You can say all of that. Objectively, this is an objective fact that you have a landlord here, which is operating in the U.S. And one of the reasons I think that this is worth highlighting is the problem of corporatized landlordization in the first place. No one is saying Israel controls everything. I want to be very clear about that. It's the 34th largest landlord. But it's emblematic to me, and I thought of this Nation story, in the same way that we can worry about Chinese purchases of large swaths of farmland, or any foreigners, by the way. Anybody ever go down to Miami? Do you know what % of Miami is owned by people with foreign addresses? It's crazy. New York City, San Diego, Los Angeles, Chicago, here in DC. Foreign ownership of land is a huge problem. And especially when it turns into a financialized instrument like in these big mega towers across the Sun Belt. One of the promises of the Sun Belt is it's cheaper to live there. That's why a lot of people move down there. Well, what's happening is they're all getting rolled up into these giant, equity investments for private equity that's yielding money now to who knows who, from Israeli companies to Chinese companies, Russian companies, sketchy Brazilian companies, money laundering from all across the world. And the people paying the price are us, who have to pay a couple $1,000s a month in rent and who are having gadgets and all these other things put in there. So I thought it was just a good piece to demonstrate how, when you have this financialization plus internationalization of America's housing market, this is the end result, ultimately.
And the other connection here, I mean, the fact that this company is so deeply involved in what are illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank and Jerusalem, think of what they're doing there. They're actively pushing Palestinians off of their land. And then think of what they're doing here, which is what the Nation documents, is they're using all these additional fees and tricks to push Americans now out of their homes, and at 9 times the rate of your average landlord. And, this is what a lot of big management companies want to do. They like to push people out of their houses. Why? Because in a lot of places, you have restrictions on how much you can hike the rent, so long as someone is occupying that apartment. When they leave, you can jack up the rent much further. We've actually seen this with some of these ICE raids, like the apartment building in Chicago. There's some indications that what happened there is you had a sleazy slumlord from out of state, not out of country, but from out of state, who wanted to kick a bunch of tenants out of the building to make it easier on them so they could, reset the rates. And so what they did was effectively like call in ICE to clear everybody out of that building. And that appears to be part of what it looks like. That may have been the story too with that whole Trender Aragua apartment building in Colorado as well. So there are lots of tricks that landlords use to try to kick people out of their apartments so that they can hike up the rent even further than they would otherwise be allowed to do. And what this documents is this Israeli company is apparently like they have really innovated in terms of the tactics that they use, the predatory and exploitative tactics that they use to make it so people cannot stay, cannot possibly afford the fees and the add-on additions in order to stay in their apartment. And so they end up out on the street. I mean, this is why when we talk about the, first of all, I think it's immoral to work with a company that is, participating in the illegal settlements in the West Bank. That's number one. But number two, when we talk about the housing market and we think about like the abundance style solutions where you're just, trying to relieve permitting issues and build out more, it's like, yes, that is part of the problem. But if you're not confronting these issues with, entrenched capital interests, then you're only dealing with one sliver of what the issue is here. You have to tackle all of these problems, and this is certainly one of them. The other one, that we've talked about before is like the algorithmic price fixing in the rental market as well. And, the rental market and the home ownership markets can be deeply connected in terms of what people are able to afford. So in any case, there you go. This Israeli company that works in the settlements, kicking Palestinians off of their land, also working here at home to kick you and other Americans out of your homes.
Yeah, and I think what it highlights is just how, structural it is, how difficult it is, to even get your foot in the door here. You just have to be extraordinarily lucky. Like if you want to make it in a high cost of living today, good luck, man. Seriously. And I hate to say that. I really do. Because the promise of cities was that people could come here if they wanted to, unlike Ben Shapiro, not saying you have to leave, if you're bored, but the promise always is, it's like, this is where the action happens and the network effects and you get to meet people, but you can't do that and then stay for a while if you make it so that only the top 0.1% are the people who can afford to live there. That's sick, actually. It's
or
really
that you
bad.
have to move when you have kids because there's just no way that you could afford to raise a family.
Yeah, I mean, look.
that really hollows out the heart and soul of a place.
One of my buddies,
it's just completely childless.
I was just talking to one of my buddies. All right, you like here in Northern Virginia, we have the most expensive county for the first 5 years of daycare. Our daycare cost right now, Arlington, Virginia, is $146,000 over 5 years. $150 grand
insane.
For 5 years. All right, what's the point of even fucking working at that point? What's your after-tax income whenever you look at daycare? And then, but if your wife doesn't work, that 20 or your husband would, I don't judge, whoever doesn't want to work, whoever doesn't want to work, well then good luck saving up for your down payment. And if you do happen to have a down payment, guess what? The boomer down the street, he's got cash in his portfolio and he's going to buy you out, and he's going to make sure that you don't even have a chance, and then you're going to end up living 95 minutes outside of town in a 3-bedroom rancher built in 1960 with the luck of living on a quarter-acre lot, if you can afford it and if you overcome everything I just discussed. Put D2 up here on the screen, for example. The median age of a U.S. home buyer is now 61 years old, okay? 61, all right? The share of first-time buyers has now fallen to a record low of 21%. Does anyone want to riddle that one for me? And everybody gets mad at me about my war on boomers and talking about property tax and all. This is why. 61. That's the median. Does everyone remember median from elementary school? So what does that tell you about the number of people over the median who are over the age of 61 who are purchasing houses and how skewed the market is? This is literally the grounds for like violent revolution. Whenever we talk about landlords, property ownership, and you people, like I'm the nice version of what's coming, just so you all understand. Like, and they're trying to pass this stuff, exempting themselves from property tax and from school tax to make so that not only do you not afford a house, but they don't have to pay for your children's school. Like they don't get it. 61 is insane. That is the sign of the sickest society on earth that prioritizes people who are on their way out, making instead of the people who are, on their way in. And it's not just for me, okay? I'm okay, but I know too many people who are not okay, who have to make really difficult choices. And very often they either have to leave their job or leave the place where they actually want to live because it's way too expensive and structurally things are not designed for your flourishing whenever you have children versus when you're older in the country. You cannot look at that chart and tell me otherwise.
Yeah.
And this landlord story is definitely part of it. I mean, here in Washington, I literally know people paying $3,000, $4,000 a month in rent. $48,000 a year after tax income. I'm talking not that, like 2-3 bedrooms, all right? Not big. And these corporatized places, it's the same thing. They slap you with all of these fees and, they're constantly, a gym and a pool and all this other stuff. And the next thing you know, if you look at the itemization of all this stuff for your increase in rent, that's where it all goes. And then apparently it's being pushed by all of this. How are you supposed to work your way out of it? I genuinely don't see a way that you can. And these are people who are all making good money. That's the craziest part. So what if you're not making good money? Then what do you do?
Yeah.
You just do what? Leave?
And then they're like, I can't believe these young people voted for Zoran. He's such a radical. It's like, you're lucky that that's what they're voting for at this
Zoran
point.
Is nice.
You're lucky.
Zoran's a nice version. The mean version, we'll leave it at
Hopefully
that
we're
right
not going to find out.
Hopefully.
But at least Trump is solving it with the 50-year mortgage. So then that's going to make everything better.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Well,
apparently the idea was so terrible. We put C3 up on or D3 up on the screen. Apparently the idea was so terrible that even within the White House, they were like, what the hell are we talking about here? Proposal wasn't fully vetted by top Trump administration officials. Apparently this guy, what's his name, Pulte? The same guy, Bill Pulte, who's like scouring records to find how Letitia James checked the wrong box one time on some mortgage application and is using that to gin up charges against Trump's enemies. That same guy is the one who came to Trump with this meme about FDR did the 30-year mortgage, and so you're going to do the 50-year mortgage, and you're both great presidents. And Trump just saw that and was like, oh, yeah, great. Love that. Love that idea. And I don't know if I've ever seen such immediate sort of visceral horror at a wonky policy proposal from across the ideological spectrum as I've seen at this.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, we're coming off of the cost of living 2025 backlash, the Zoran Mamdani election in New York City. And what we're also looking at here is this is the question of our time. Like, I really am coming back to this. Can we pull over an element? I didn't get to it in our last block. C3, please, just pull it over here. I've referenced it a couple of times here on the show. But this is that study which says that rising housing costs have caused some 51% of the total fertility rate decline between the 2000s and the 2010s, and some 7 percentage points fewer young families in the 2010s. That will only be compounded by a factor of like 5, considering the 50% increase in housing that has come since 2021 alone, and from Gen Z and younger millennials, people like myself. So if you put that together and you can just see the existential nature through which lack of property ownership, lack of stake, and lack of hope for people have for a foundation of the future, it is not a surprise of not only politics, but of like everything. And I have all these boomers in my replies who are always like, well, you have no idea if you look at, housing and costs and all of that. Guys, look, facts are real. You can go and look. The average home buyer in 1985 was 29 years old. Remember that graphic I used to put up all the time about 1971, where if you look at the median wage, medium home price, medium cost of car, and everything, it was just dramatically more affordable. Like, I won't be lectured by people who were literally able to buy a home in the 1980s and then experience the bull markets of the 1990s and made an absolute shit pot of money, and then are using the political system to their own benefit and to lobby for property tax deduction, free Social Security, free health care, and every other free thing that they can possibly think of. So I don't know. I look at that study. I look at the modern election, like you said, with Zoran. They're calling him radical. I mean, in my opinion, like it's nothing compared to what is coming.
His policy platform actually is quite moderate. Like, if you poll the entire population, every single one of the things his core promises that he ran on gets majority support. So he is actually the median, like the moderate, in terms of where the population is. I think you have another update for us, though, Saagar.
Oh,
on,
yes, I apologize.
Israeli influence on our society.
I've been wanting to cover this for a while since we broke that story about Alexandrovich. Just an update for everybody. Let's put it up here on the screen in case anybody. I have not forgotten, please. I have not forgotten about the story. I do still track it, and I have people in Vegas who send me tips a little bit about this. Put D4 up there on the screen just so I can break it down. You'll remember Tom Alexandrovich, the Israeli cybersecurity official who was ensnared in a bust where Las Vegas PD and HSI at the Homeland Security Agency teamed up, where they were chatting with men on these apps, posing as underage teenagers, in this case, a 15-year-old girl, and basically luring these individuals in for an operation to try and get, people would-be pedophiles off the streets. And so this Israeli official, Tom Alexandrovich, was taken into custody. He admits he waives his Miranda rights. He admits in the interrogation, starts dropping all these hints about meeting with the FBI, meeting with the NSA, immediately flies back to Israel after posting bail. He appears via Zoom in court from Israel, and his most recent defense all hinges on app verification, okay? So the lawyers, by the way, very pro-Israel lawyers, who are representing this man in Vegas, are challenging the undercover officer because they're saying that because the app's terms of service say that you have to be 18 to use it, that he had reason to believe that the person he was chatting with was 18 years old. Belies the fact that in the transcript, they're like, I'm 15. Like, they say something like, I am 15 years old. And he, again, you can go and read the docs that I released. He waives his Miranda and basically admits to it while he's testifying, or not testifying, but he's being questioned, presumably, not under
the initial interview.
Yeah, in the interview with FBI officials. It's all out there, directly. A second officer testified that a source shown to Alexandrovich in the video call said, they said, quote, of age just over 18. The decoy literally said, quote, I'm only 15. I'm only 15. I'm not allowed in over since I'm only 15. Said it twice in the transcript, according to the grand jury documents that have been released. So during the interview, Alexandrovich is saying, oh, well, she pushed me to show up in an Uber with a condom in my pocket. Okay, let's take her to Cirque du Soleil. So good luck with that in court. I don't know. I mean, it could work. He has remained out of custody and out of the country. He's on a $10,000 bail, and the Clark County District Judge will be hearing petitions on November 24th. Trial is scheduled for March. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And remember, all of this is happening in absentia. He's not here. He's not committed to coming back. It's all coming via Zoom. The judge actually admonished the lawyer earlier for not appearing even via Zoom, and saying that the lawyer needed needed permission for all of this. So we're still following the case, and the Israelis and other people are just hoping this stuff will go away. But we will continue to keep you guys updated. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.